Welcome, everybody, to today's Better Way Thursday workshop. We are going to have a conversation today that we have been working on for a long time. It's something I know that's on the top of many of our minds, which is how do we find a job in this crazy, mixed up marketplace right now? Over the past year, there have been hundreds of thousands of layoffs in the tech industry, from huge companies to small companies, all types of funding, companies of different backgrounds and different organizational makeup. And so, because so many of us are moving into a brand new industry and trying to figure this place out, so many of our tech moms are like, what are we doing? How do we do this? What have I gotten myself into? Why did I ever, try to make this transition into the technology industry and technology roles? And so, this conversation today, we have. I've got these four wonderful recruiters on here with me representing four different industries, actually. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. And we emphasize this all the time, that tech is not just the big tech industry, right? That we say this all the time, there are non-technical roles at every tech company, and there are tech jobs at every single company. Sometimes we go as far to say as every company is a tech company. Some people might disagree with me, but there are definitely tech jobs at every tech company. So we're gonna dive right in. I've got Richelle here, Luz, Megan, and Claire, and I'm gonna ask them quickly to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about where they're working now and a little bit about their background, just about 1 minute so you get a sense of where they're coming from. We've got fantastic experts here, and then we're gonna dive right into some questions. So Richelle, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Excellent. Thank you. My name is Richelle Covello. I'm with Intermountain Health. I've been with the organization about 14 years now. Got started in 2008 when things tanked, and I came here for the benefits, and I'm sticking around because I love the mission of the organization and the roles I get to work with, everything from CEOs to EVS technicians. So I cover a wide variety of areas.
Thank you so much. Luz, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Luz Lara, and I work with MasterCard with their product and engineering division for North America and Canada. And I've been with them for a little over 2 years, but my background in recruitment has about 10 years of experience, different type of industries, companies, different sizes and whatnot. And I'm very happy to be here to learn from each other, also to share some information I may be able to.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Megan.
Great. So I am Megan Westover, and I am currently at Bamboo HR, which is one of all of them, right? Tech companies, as we talk about. I have been here over 2 years and have recruited for a variety of roles, but mainly our high volume roles, which is we consider as our entry level. So that is where I'm at.
Thank you so much. And Claire.
Hi, so my name is Claire Adam, and I'm an HR business partner with ARUP Laboratories. So I have a little bit of different skill set than the other lovely ladies on this call. I help kind of with the employee relations side and also like management support. So I can potentially, during this conversation, give a really good perspective about what managers are looking for, what and what a good employee or the employee life cycle looks like from that perspective. So
Perfect. Thank you so much. So you've heard as our women have introduced themselves today, we've got kind of standard tech represented here. We have biomedical, biotech, that industry, which is actually a huge industry here in Utah and Salt Lake City. Didn't we say, Claire, it's like the sixth largest area for biomedical in the country, right? So tons of opportunities there. And then we've got the financial industry and healthcare. And so I wanted to make sure that we had a broad representation here to remind ourselves there are more opportunities than we might recognize. So as I mentioned, the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of layoffs that we've seen over the past year. At the same time, here in the state of Utah, and I know that if you're a job seeker, it can be really hard to hear this, but we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the nation. It's still around 2.4%, and there are almost 2 open roles listed for every job seeker in the state. So if you've been looking for a job and you can't find one, that it should be encouraging, but sometimes it feels like a slap in the face. You're like, well, what's wrong with me if there are so many jobs here? And we know that not all jobs are equal. Not all jobs, I mean, most of us are leaving, well, not all of us, but some of us are leaving other jobs that we no longer want to work in, industries, types of roles that we don't want to work in. So we know not every job out there is going to be the right job for us. But at the same time, I hope that those facts give you some encouragement, because there are jobs out there, right? So Megan, I wanted to start with you today, and especially not just working right in the tech industry, but you also work at a company that helps other companies hire, right? So you're seeing job listings throughout your organization. But the first question I've got today is, who is still hiring? Like, are there tech companies that are still hiring? What kinds of organization? Everybody else be thinking about this as well. I'd love you all to address this, but are there certain types of roles where we can still look? Are there certain types of industries, certain types of companies? Is it that the big companies are no longer hiring, but the small ones are, or vice versa? Like, give us a little bit of your thoughts and insights there.
Yeah, my thoughts might be kind of broad, so feel free to answer or ask any follow-up questions. But in general, first, I would say a lot of people are still hiring, but hiring has slowed down, right? So there might not be as many either roles open or as specific roles as you're looking for. We also noticed that a lot of higher up paying jobs aren't as open or being looked for. But when you have your entry level roles or people who are starting to try to get into a certain industry, those are definitely still open. Again, it just might take a little bit more digging for it because things have slowed down. That's just the reality of it. When it comes to like bigger companies hiring or smaller companies, I wish I had an exact answer, but I would say, again, all of them are still in a way hiring, just slowing down and looking for maybe more those entry level roles are more available.
Thank you so much for that perspective. And for most of our tech moms, that's exactly what we're looking for, right? None of us are senior software developers, senior engineers, or anything like that. So those entry level roles are what we're looking for. But I also loved your emphasis on the timing, right? Maybe 18 months ago when nobody, there were so few job seekers, the job market was so hot that you could expect to get a job pretty quickly. And one of our goals today is to set expectations, right, for our women. So there are still jobs out there, people are still hiring. It might take you longer than it would have taken you a year ago or 18 months ago. And it might be a little harder, it might be a little more discouraging, right? But it is possible. There are things still happening. Who wants to tackle this question? Share some ideas and insights on this one.
I would just, sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Going to add that to Megan's point, when it slows down, there are more applicants to sift through. And I know this is one of our questions further down. And that does slow down the hiring process as well. We had a position open that I looked at last night that had over 700 applicants. And we're like, how do we screen for that? So that slows down the process. So don't get discouraged by that. I mean, they've got to hire some out of that 700 and it may be you. So I think that's always something to just recognize in these markets where things slow down a little bit.
Thank you. Luz.
Yeah, I was going to say that something really important when you're looking for a job and you're going to see positions open now. The interesting thing is when you see the positions open right now, they're going, especially in jobs for technology or technology related, they're going to be asking for very niche specific requirements, because that's what we are moving in that direction right now, right? With being very mindful of what we post, on how we post it, and the target to hire dates and whatnot. We're going to, as the company is going to take their time to find the right skill set. And that, for that reason, is really important for applicants to send their best resume possible, highlighting their skill set. So that's how they're going to somehow, and I think that was one of the questions coming up as well, how they are going to, that's how they are going to shine within, let's say, 100, 200 other candidates within the candidate pool. So jobs are coming open. It is, probably few, and it is take a little longer, but that should not discourage candidates. It's just a matter of patience a little bit, during these specific times, but it requires persistency.
Mhm. And you've given kind of three reasons why things are slowing down, right? We have so many applicants that they want to, maybe because companies are tightening up, they want to be more specific about getting that perfect person, right? And one thing I wanted to talk about, Luz, when you said that it's so important to put your very best foot forward, your very best resume that you can. Out of those 700 applicants that are coming in, they're not 700 super great, strong applicants, right? A lot of them are not just right. So don't feel discouraged. Even I know that on LinkedIn, when a job posting comes up and it might say there are already 300 people applied for this job or whatever. Well, there aren't necessarily 300 great applicants. Don't let that scare you away. Claire, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I can speak kind of directly with ARUP Laboratories. So we right now are very conscious of the jobs we're posting. So instead of just saying, hey, you need it, go for it. Like we have a multiple level review of if that job is needed. And so that also kind of speaks to the slowing down and also being more deliberate about who do we need on the bus, what jobs and what skills do we need on the bus. So I think, to Luz's point, be like targeted. So I think, and like you said, there's a 2% unemployment rate. So the market is really hot. Like we want good candidates and we're looking for good candidates and we're trying to source good candidates. So we're hiring, feel free to apply.
Yeah.
And it's, so I would say that all of that combined makes it, like, I guess from a job seeker perspective, seeming like, oh, it's harder to get into that entry level, but we're still actively recruiting. So even though we're being more deliberate about who we're hiring, we're actively recruiting still. So it's just, like I said, that shift that we've seen.
All right. So Claire, I want to come back to you, right back to you, and talk about this broader conversation with all these different industries we've got represented on this call. What are the types of different roles? Obviously, you're going to have like biologists and chemists and different things in your industry, but more broadly, for those that don't have that specific college degree but have some tech background, things like that, what are the types of tech roles or entry level roles available, not just at your company, but in the industry more broadly as well?
Right. I think that the tech industry specifically is really great about removing that paper ceiling. So like it's more skills-based assessments versus like, oh, I have a degree. So I think that like your organization helps, like if the skills match, that industry is really like, let's get you on. In terms of what is available, like, I mean, I think every organization is harnessing data, like data analysts, data, like building reports. That's a really great skill set that, I mean, we have an HR information person, but that's all they do is just like build reports for all of the data that human resources data. So I think that I mean, and that trends for every industry, like finance. So data is really, I'm seeing that lots of organizations are trying to harness that data. So that's a really great resource. And then IT, I mean, IT helps us run the whole ship. We process 80,000 specimens a day, and we are building robots. We are building automation. So yeah, lots of creating that, like how to move the robot arm to pick the specimen up. Like there's just lots of really great things that that even though it's like you don't need a PhD in molecular biology, but we still need someone to figure out how to pick up that specimen. So that's an example.
Those were not the type of robots I was thinking of, but it's good to know you've got some good robots going on. Luz,
Yeah.
how about you? How about the types of tech roles that you're seeing, not just at your company, but across the financial industry?
You know, something that's really, really promising and amazing about tech jobs or a career in tech is that those skills are transferable. With, like you mentioned in at the beginning, you know, almost all companies have some sort of a tech component. It doesn't matter the size, it doesn't matter the industry. We need technology. And before, or traditionally has been considered, you know, software engineers, if you get a degree or a background in software engineering, that's what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, whether you realize you like it or not after you got your degree. Well, the great news is that many of those skills can be transferable to, you know, data analysis, developer operations, software marketing, even technical writing, product management, technical product management. There is a whole bunch of new and upcoming jobs that require some level of technical skills but they are not necessarily going to be coding the entire day. And I think that is an area that it's not completely explored by many professionals in the tech industry who may be able to get a job that's not necessarily, developing code, but they could be training, they could be engaging other recruiters, they could be doing customer service for our clients, developers. They're called evangelists pretty much. And it's amazing to see how under tapped those, those jobs are by candidates. That's when we have to go out and find technical backgrounds and say, hey, have you considered doing something a little different, still based in technology, but actually, writing tech specs for our clients and things like that. So, and I think that's the beauty of the flexibility now we're seeing in the market and the opportunities that may be available if we think with an open mind.
And Luz, all those jobs that you mentioned, those types of jobs are available in the financial services industry.
They
Okay,
are.
perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Currently with MasterCard, if I may, MasterCard has been traditionally, a debit, credit, and prepaid card, right? In financial services, perhaps. With the acquisition of Finicity, that it's a company that deals in fintech and open banking, and also other small startups that are related to cryptocurrency and blockchain. So this is database products, and it's a whole different market than the traditional financial services with credit cards and debit cards. So MasterCard is becoming a technology-based company pretty much, and that's why we have these many new openings right now. We're struggling to find the talent. We're trying to find the developer operations evangelists and all of that. And we often have to go find the people who are working in software engineer roles, but they are willing to, segue into a different career path that may be, very interesting as well.
I love it. Richelle, how about you? What about in the healthcare industry?
Oh, wow. We have, it's a lot like Claire's, where we have everything from robots to frontline people working on things. I know cybersecurity is always a high need in healthcare, and we have some software engineers. We have like My Health app. We have people working on those. I actually was just looking because we recently merged with SCL Health, and all of our jobs are now on one board, and there's titles that I've never even seen before this month, and I've been here this long, so it's exciting and new. But we have some technical business analysts. That's an entry-level position that I wasn't even aware how entry-level that was, which is great. And we actually have some apprenticeship programs for cybersecurity coming up. I believe in June they'll be reopening those. Our last year's class graduates in June, and that's a paid apprenticeship. And we're going to be basing those on our needs this next year. Our first round was kind of like, this is what we're doing. And the second round is going to be more catered into positions that we have open. But I was just looking here, and we have 22 open jobs just when I sort by IT on our job board. So there's a variety of things on here too. A lot of analysts, business analysts, data analysts, technical analyst jobs. We have a whole spectrum of people at Intermountain Health as well. And in several states now, we're in 7 states versus just Utah, and most of our roles can be hybrid or fully remote.
I love hearing that. And one of the things, if we have, people that they might have a long-term goal, oh, I really want to work in the tech industry, right? What a great segue to say, maybe I can get a job as a data analyst somewhere else. And then all your companies are going to be so amazing that just like Richelle, they're going to say, oh, I thought I was going to move over here, but I'm going to stay at Intermountain forever, right? But I love that idea that sometimes a transition, especially right now when there are tens of thousands of professionals who have a lot of experience, who are coming from Meta, who are coming from Microsoft, who are coming from these huge tech companies, those are going to be the most obvious ones to move into open roles at tech companies. But there can be, and as women, we all know, sometimes our career takes this meandering path, right? And it might take us a while, and we may end up, we will all, I will say, we will end up somewhere where we never dreamed or never imagined. And hopefully it's going to be a great place for us. Megan, any other thoughts on this of ways to look beyond what we think of as the standard tech industry to find technical roles?
Yeah, I'll quickly add a thought. In the software industry, we find some of the biggest departments in these companies is our customer experience department. Now, we get a little scared of this sometimes because we think of, oh, call center, right? Yes, that is a role that's at them, but you also have implementation, you have customer success, you have customer expansion, learning and development. And the main part of each of these roles that these individuals have to have is a deep knowledge of the software, right? And that is your tech role, because you have to know the software, the ins and outs, the background of it. And so these are great roles to look for in the software industry. And then again, our customer experience departments are some of the biggest departments in each of these companies.
Love it. Love it. All right. So I've got a one-word question for each of you right now. And we know for the past couple of years, everybody has been saying it's a candidates market, right? Somebody can come in, write their own ticket, say, I want to work fully hybrid or remote. I want this much money. I want 1 million days off a year, you know, all this other stuff, especially if they were like a talented software developer or somebody in really high demand. So right now, do you think that we are still in a candidates market? Are we now in an employer's market, or is it mixed? So let's start with Luz. What do you think?
It's been very interesting to work through the pandemic, right? And the big boom in tech hiring. Obviously, we were fighting with teeth and nail for candidates a few years ago. Believe me, we interview candidates that affected even our processes and the speed of our processes. Within 2 weeks of opening a position, we had already completed the entire interview process. We were ready to make an offer, and the day we were pushing our offer out to the candidate, that person already had 2 or 3 other competing offers, and it was nerve-wracking, but it was exciting, very exciting. But it has changed a little bit. Right now, we don't see much bargaining power from the candidates when it comes to, you know, I want this much money, I want all these perks, benefits, sign-on bonus, working remote, and relocation, and all of that. Because of the effects of the pandemic as well, right? Many companies had to change the way they work, especially with positions that allow for remote work. So what I've seen so far is a big change, and you may have seen it in the news already. Many companies that before were okay with fully remote work for many of their employees, they are now calling them to work in a hybrid environment. We're not quite back to, you know, like 40 hours in office, but I see more and more and more the tendencies coming to, we want in-face, in-office collaboration. We're also seeing still, you know, a very high competition for skills. And in that aspect, I think the ball is in the candidate's court, because if they have the right skill set, they still have the bargaining power to say, I want this much, and I want to work in these conditions, and I want to do all of this. Companies cannot afford, with the speed that technology-based products are supposed to be coming to the market and developing the processes and whatnot, we cannot afford to be very strict in certain things, where to say, well, if you don't relocate to this place, you won't be able to work for us. It takes a lot, you know, walking fine lines versus what we can push on as a company and what, you know, where we can compromise with the candidates. So it's still kind of like, you know, 50-50, not necessarily an all candidates market, but we're not here in the, you know, like the company has entire power to make the decisions.
And especially for those that have those highly specialized, very in-demand skills, they still have a lot of leverage. Most of our women are not going to fit into that category, right? So they're going to need to be more flexible and things like that. Claire, what are your thoughts on this question about the candidates market, employers market?
Yep, I think, Robin, just what you said, I think that depending on how in demand the skill is, we're still that marketplace for those jobs are still really candidate driven. For the kind of where it's a broader market for entry level, I think that's now switching more to the employer. Don't get me wrong, I think there's still that competition, like Luz mentioned, like fighting tooth and nail, because in Utah, we're at a 2% unemployment rate. So like I think that there's still that mentality, but and also to Richelle, like, you know, I think that for those entry level roles, we're seeing a lot of applicants apply. So I think that it depends on the jobs that you're going for, and then your specific skill set, and then kind of making a strategic plan to see like what's my strategy based on the jobs I'm applying for, would be my suggestion.
Perfect. Thank you. Megan, what are you thinking?
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Luz.
Yeah, and if I may add, I want to say, like on a positive note, especially with technology jobs, there is a big drive for companies to pay close attention and push very big efforts to hire diverse candidates, and that includes female candidates. So that's kind of like an advantage for women in technology, because right now we have very, very big initiatives and well-founded and so needed initiatives to bring those diverse voices, people of color and females into those jobs that traditionally were occupied by by men, right? So that's probably like one silver lining
Yeah.
for female candidates to say you may have a good opportunity. Obviously, there is a lot of other variables and things that we as candidates we have to put in place and make sure we are hitting all of those marks. But there is that that opening in the companies more and more and more. We are right now desperately looking for female candidates in technology, and it's being taken very seriously at MasterCard.
Thank you. Thank you so much for mentioning it. That's a really important point. Megan, what are you thinking?
I am actually thinking it's definitely more of an employee market. Employer market. I think the pandemic brought some good things that as a candidate, you can still have high expectations in what you should receive from the role, whether it's remote work, good pay, flexibility. You can still have those expectations, but just in the market that we are right now, speaking for software companies, we are more leaning towards it's a company employer market.
Thank you. And what are you thinking, Richelle?
I was leaning a little more towards Megan's right there as well. I know that Intermountain had a big initiative last year to put all of our wages right on our job postings, which kind of takes that negotiating power out of things, but it also makes jobs a lot more equitable. To Luz's point, we are looking for a lot of diverse candidates, underrepresented groups, and it kind of lets everybody know it's really transparent what our parameters are when we're making an offer of where we can be. And it does give employees that advantage if they know what they're applying for, but it gives the employers the advantage of this is our parameters and this is where we're willing to negotiate with them. And we are also seeing, I know Claire had mentioned earlier that when they post a position, it has to go through a process to get it approved. And we're in that same process. Any position that's posted has to be approved, and it's approved within a certain budget. So we kind of are like, well, I guess we're going without if it's not within this budget. If there's not somebody willing to do this job within that budget, we're often building other caregivers up. And sorry, all of our employees are called caregivers. We're building other caregivers up into these roles, and we are investing in that education more than negotiating with an external candidate.
I love it. Can I just say thank you for posting the salary for your roles? I'm a huge fan of pay transparency. I think it's better for everybody. And so I want to applaud your organization for doing that. Okay, so I want to throw this question out to anybody who wants to tackle it. Is there any point in applying for a job at a company that's done big layoffs, right? We've seen across the state here, across the country, and all the layoffs, big news, right? We all know these companies, they laid off hundreds of employees, things like that. And then we still look on their website and they've still got 100 open roles, 150 open roles. Is there any point in applying for those companies, or should we just say they just did a huge layoff, I'm staying far away from them right now? Any thoughts on that?
I'm going to go ahead and tackle this in what we've seen in some of our roles, in that there's always that fear. If 2 people get laid off, 5 people leave because they think they're next. We still need those people to do the jobs. We're trying to make the most minor cuts possible. And it may be, there's always an underlying performance issue, something along those lines, but it will come down to a budget cut. And if we've laid off 2 and 5 have left and we've posted those jobs, it's because we definitely need those jobs. And there's a team of people behind that posting, analyzing, saying, we're not going to get XYZ done if we don't have those people in that role. So I would say, yes, if it's posted out there, there may still be reasons why the company needs those positions. And I do think there's always that fear of change, that there's a lot of bandwagon people. When 1 or 2 get laid off, a whole team often starts jumping ship right away.
That's a great point. What
Yeah,
else? Other
I
thoughts on
think it
this?
is really important also for candidates to check a few things, right? When they see a posting from a company that recently had done or conducted layoffs, is to see when the post was originally when the opening was posted, right? If it is being open for 3 months, most likely, is not gonna get hired. To Richelle's point, right? Like even if a company conducts layoffs, and if they have current openings, those are the jobs that are truly needed, right? Like it doesn't mean that the company by doing layoffs is not going to need any more, new jobs, but probably now it's strategic roles or, skill-based roles that they may be needed at this point because of, the budget analysis, because of the skill set analysis within their workforce and whatnot. But from the candidate perspective, obviously, to make sure that you're applying and hopefully, like getting seen, just review, the whole overall, or educate yourself about the company's health. You can go and read online and find articles and whatnot and make an educated decision. If it is an old post, I would say, probably don't apply for it. Although that also has a little bit of a caveat because a post that has been open for a long time may be kind of like a pipeline for, like we may not need this position now, but budget wise, we may be targeting and hiring these positions in quarter number 3
Next
or
quarter,
quarter number 4, right? So I think we have to exercise as candidates a little bit of our own judgment, right?
So there's not a hard and fast rule, right? If you see
That's
this,
right.
and sometimes I think as well, if we look closely, like Amazon is really trimming certain divisions, right? And other divisions are still growing. And
Yep,
so,
yep.
if you're looking carefully, then you might say, oh, it's because they're putting less emphasis on that, but they still really need other workers here. Megan, Claire, any thoughts on that question?
I was just going to add to like move forward with it, that if you do get an interview and you apply for it, take the risk, might as well. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. And if they can't answer why they did layoffs or why there's concern, then that would be red flags, right?
Yeah.
They should be able to explain all that's happening.
Exactly. That's a really good point because ultimately, even if you don't get the job, you keep practicing your interview skills. That's a big one.
I love practice interviews. Claire, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that kind of echoing what everyone said and yourself, if the job is posted, that means that the organization is hiring, and there might be, like you said, different departments, divisions, different strategic initiatives, like maybe an organization is pivoting. So I think that definitely like you said, take it all in, use your deductive reasoning to make sure it's a good choice of like moving forward. But if it's an active posting and you're interested in that organization, I wouldn't let the layoffs only hold you back.
Okay. So Claire, I want to skip ahead to a future question because we've already brought this up. We see a lot of people talking about ghost job postings, right? Ghost jobs that are posted on a company's website. They've been posted there for a long time, but it appears as if they're not really hiring for it. And some people, kind of argue or maybe conspiracy theorize that the companies have open jobs there because they want to appear to be stronger than they are. Oh, yes, we are hiring, but they're really not hiring, or they leave things open just to kind of keep getting a long pool for maybe, hoarding talent. Maybe we're going to need this later. Is this something that you see? Is this something, is ghost job postings a real thing? And should we worry about it if it is? I mean, if we're applying for jobs pretty quickly, maybe it doesn't hurt us to do that. But Claire, I'd love your thoughts on that.
Sure, of course. So I used to work for an organization that, I worked for the University of Utah, and government jobs historically take a really long time to hire, to post, etc. And we had a big problem where people would like forget to take a posting down. So it wasn't anything nefarious. It wasn't anything like secretive. It just was like, oh yeah, I heard that. I never closed it out. And so I, as a candidate myself, I remember getting emails from the University of Utah like 2 years later being like, you didn't get that job for 2 years. And I'm like, yeah, that's
Really?
fair. I get that. So I don't think it's nefarious. I don't think there's anything like hoarding talent or anything. I just think larger organizations, sometimes they don't close that loop. And especially government jobs, it just takes a long time to fill those positions. I know with ARUP Laboratories, we're very conscious of only having active postings open. So I think that I guess it depends on the organization, like how actively they're removing job postings, but I don't think it's anything nefarious. I think it's just like sometimes recruitment teams are overwhelmed, especially in the like hiring frenzies. It's like, oh yeah, we don't need that role anymore. Oopsies. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Awesome. Any other thoughts? Richelle, do you have any thoughts on these ghost postings?
Yes, I agree 100%. I don't think it's ever intentional if they're left up there. And often we have what you call an evergreen position for our high turnover roles. I am literally the only person that's ever hired too many people and there wasn't jobs out there. It was during COVID. I wasn't trained on the system. I'm not a recruiter. I hired too many people. We actually found a spot for them somewhere else. But in a lot of systems, I know that there are safeties in place so that we can only have a job posted if there are open roles behind that. So I know that's how all of ours operate, is even if there is an evergreen position out there, it needs to be tied to other roles that are actually open with a manager tied to them and that approval from finance. So I think that there may still be some out there that appear to be that way. And I really don't think they're intentional, but it may happen. And again, look at the date of when it was posted. Kind of use your judgment there. If it's been open for, more than 90 days, I know that Claire said, government agencies take forever, but we have 2,700 open jobs right now, and that's just on the front end. So our recruiters do get a little overwhelmed occasionally and forget to take one down.
Oh my gosh. So we don't have to worry that the whole world's against us, right? That there's probably not a big conspiracy going on. I want to ask a question on the flip side, that we hear a lot about the hidden job market, right? That there are positions that you can get jobs, but they aren't necessarily posted, that you just work your way into them by networking and having conversations and things like that. Any thoughts on these so-called hidden jobs that are, and how do we learn about them, and how do we get ourselves in that candidate pool if these jobs do exist?
Networking. You got to know somebody to know about hidden anything. I mean, it really is tricky to find those roles. And I would say, from my experience with Intermountain, if there's a job that's not posted to everybody else, it's for an internal candidate. So ask within your own organization, find ways to stand out in whatever role you're currently in, whether it's, if you're a housekeeper, be the best housekeeper you could possibly be. Find ways to stand out in whatever you're doing, and it opens a lot more opportunities. And that's the only time I've ever heard of somebody, getting a job without it being posted somewhere or having to talk to somebody, seeing it in advance. I mean, there may be experiences that others have, but I could just speak from my experience at Intermountain with that.
Yeah.
Megan, were you going to, Luz, go ahead.
I'm sorry. In my experience, for example, there could be some situations where there's a confidential search for, some reason. And we are not supposed to post the position to the public, right? But then what we could be doing as recruiters is sourcing. And in order for us to do that and to find the candidates, we require that the potential candidates have their LinkedIn updated, because that's the first place we go. So again, you may not be keen to this, hidden jobs, but you may be, probably able to find out when a recruiter is doing a sourcing search on LinkedIn. That's why it is so crucial for your LinkedIn profile to be updated with all the details, all the skill set, the relevant information. It's not just, your name and the job title you've done for the past 5 or 6 years or something. Please build it up, be active on LinkedIn, because if we need to do a search for passive candidates, that's where we go. We do Boolean searches and we try to find skills. We try to find even, network associations or organizations. We try to do colleges and stuff like that when we are for example, diversity targeted search. Please make yourself visible and available through LinkedIn.
Thank you for that plug for LinkedIn. I am beating the drum of keeping your LinkedIn super active and relevant all the time. So it's good for my women to hear it from somebody else. It's not just me, you guys. Everybody knows LinkedIn's so important. Megan, what's your thoughts on the hidden job market?
What I've experienced is anytime we don't post a role, it's because we're looking for like a director or even VP role. And we don't post it because if we do, hate to say it, 95% of the people that are going to apply for it aren't qualified for it. And those that we're looking for aren't looking for a new job. We're having to source them. We're having to start conversations. So that's the big reason why we don't post it, is they're for higher up jobs, very specific roles that we're looking for. So it's just easier and better for our time as recruiters to just go source those individuals than have to constantly look through
Be
applications.
sorting through so many.
Yeah.
Claire, anything to add on that one?
Nope, I echo everyone. That what they've said. It's usually for higher roles, and then also internal positions that that are kind of those star candidates that were growing in the organization. So to Richelle and Luz's point, like that, once you're in an organization and you're interested in progressing, that's a really great way to kind of like grow with an organization, because we love to invest in our employees.
I love it. And I'm going to take this just to add a completely opposite perspective, the very, very opposite end of the spectrum, because we're representing some pretty large organizations here that have a lot of structure and regimentation and things like that. I would say the other style of hidden jobs that are out there are at the mom and pop neighbor store, right? Like we actually know tons of women who get their first job because, Richelle, they were doing what you were talking to, but they were doing networking in their neighborhood or doing something else, and they might find out that their friend is running an online store and she needs someone to manage their website. So there are ways to get these even technical jobs, or somebody to run their database for them, or their inventory, or different things like that, where you're learning those technical skills. So there are ways to get jobs that aren't posted because someone never realized that they knew that they needed you until they were talking to you at the soccer sidelines, and then you're
I
like,
do it
hey,
constantly.
Yeah.
The amount of people I bring in from bike races or a kid event is hilarious. They're like, where did you find this person? I'm like, well, it was at a carnival. So it does. I mean, those conversations pop up just naturally all the time. It is the best way to find stuff.
Richelle, I love that. That's perfect. And the other drum that I beat all the time besides LinkedIn, and it's related, is networking, right? And that's related to a question I'm going to ask in a second. But while we're on this idea of the hidden jobs, ghost jobs, different things like that, we had one of our women ask a question: how can we get a sense of whether a company is a little bit more stable? We're less likely to be facing the volatility and all the layoffs and things like that. Do you have any tips for women who want to be working in an industry and maybe they're willing to give up some other things for working for a company that's a little bit more stable and less likely to be as volatile? Who wants to jump in first with this one?
I'd say Google searches. For me, that's a really hard one to answer for everybody else, because Intermountain, we're the largest employer in the state. We're very public with who we are and what we do. It's those finding the role for you within who we are and what we do that's the hard part of Intermountain, I would say. But I would say definitely do a Google search, research the company, look it up, just see what they're about, see if they're publicly traded. I actually had a job interview once where somebody asked me what their thing was on the public trade. And I'm like, I have no idea. And she's like, yeah, this job's not for you. And I was like, yep, certainly isn't. So I had no idea that was even a suggestion to look into the, Dow Jones of where they were being traded that day. But I think that's a really great point to see how stable an organization is.
I mean, what would be Google exactly? Like, what sorts of search questions would we type into Google to see how solid and kind of stable a company was?
Company's name, when it was established, who or what it's ran by. Is it individually owned? Is it owned by a different corporation? Is it set up under some other organization? For example, Intermountain has like 7 other companies under us that people don't even know that we own. And so if you were to Google Telica Health, a lot of people don't know that's an Intermountain entity. And so just Googling those names and seeing what it's tied to, I think, is really important. And I would even Google, owners of or board of directors of, just see who's involved and where you're applying.
Okay. Other thoughts on this one?
Maybe the products they are developing too, and depending of the overall economic situation in the market and whatnot, probably see what is a potential future, even though we're not able to determine how the economy is gonna be in the next 5 years or so. But there are certain industries that are more resilient in crisis than some other ones. So it's very interesting to get educated and read as much as possible as what type of industries are gonna perform still regardless of the size of the company, because we don't want to say like don't go to startups, because the startups are more like probably more prompt to close business when the economy goes bad, or try to find jobs in a global company only. I think it is just very specific, case based, what the company is developing, what type of products, what's the future and the perspective for for those type of industries. Who would have thought 20 years ago that fintech, open banking was going to be what it is right now, right? Probably nobody was. I mean, when Amazon started, like the shares were what, like $25, and look at now, right?
Who would have thought they were just selling books, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I've had a few women tell me when they come into Tech Moms and they're just getting started, and they'll say, all I want to do, they've been around a block a few times, they've had some ups and downs in their careers, and I had one woman tell me once, all I want to do is just find a good job where I can stay for the next 20 years. And I was like, I feel like you've chosen the wrong industry. Now, I love your feedback and thoughts on that. One of the things that I tell a lot of women, and I want you guys to push back on me if I'm wrong, there are tons of benefits to working in the tech industry. The pay is generally higher. There are lots of perks. There's more opportunities for remote work, so many things. I would say that stability is not one of the defining factors of the tech industry. I would say if you want stability, become a school teacher. My husband actually had a 20-year career in the tech industry. He just became a middle school math teacher. And looking over this last year, I'm like, well, he's not going to lose his job this year, right? Or working for the government or different things like that. Like there are some industries that are more generally seen to be more stable. I think tech is not one of those industries. And so there are companies, different things that are, maybe more stable than others, but push back on me on that. What do you think about that idea?
But to your point, I mean, every organization is a tech organization, right? So if you're in government, like maybe your job's more stable, but there's a tech job in government. So I think you can, if the industry is stable, I mean, like at ARUP, like we have 20, 30, 35, 40-year employees, and they kind of bop around and they grow. And so they get that kind of diversity of change, but within ARUP. So I would say that you could, if stability is important for that person, I think that you can find organizations that are stable and like have a tech job in that stable organization. So I guess that would be my, I don't know if that's pushback, but just like a different perspective.
Yeah, and I think so. Okay, we're coming up right on our time, and I really want to get to some actionable, practical advice that you can give to our women. So the first thing I want to ask is it worth it right now to be more picky when you're looking for a job? We've got a lot of women who just got their training and things like that. And some of them, with the promises of coming to Detect, they're like, no, I want to wait till I can have the job that checks all my boxes, right? Is it worth it to wait for that right now? Or is now the time to say, you know what, I'm just going to get any job. I'm going to get my foot in the door, even if the pay is not just what I want, even if it doesn't have everything that I need, but this is going to get me on my path to where I want to be eventually? Or is there an argument to be made for you can still afford to be picky?
I guess it depends. Oh,
Go ahead.
I guess it depends of their individual situation, right? If they can financially afford to wait for the right opportunity, by all means. But also they need to take into account that when they come to the interview stage, they're gonna have to, address, gaps in employment, perhaps. What were you doing? And there's nothing wrong with gaps in employment, because either you chose to stop working to go to school or to care for your family, or who knows, right? And that's not actually a red flag for us as a recruiter, but we do want to understand what were you doing during that time, right? Especially if if it has to do with a little bit of like how accountable you can be for for employment. And the most important thing at that point would be yes, you were looking for a job, and your dream job, but also you were doing some you were training, getting some certifications, doing some research online, you were getting, adding to your skills, you were volunteering, networking, anything to show for those times, right? But then on the other hand, if you cannot afford to wait any longer, my my recommendation would be to still do a little bit of do a search for what, even though if it's an entry-level job, but something that can be congruent with the rest of your career in the future, right? Like it doesn't matter if it is, even if, you know, after being a software engineer who was laid off and then now you find yourself having to, you know, pay bills and have to work as an Uber driver or you name it, right? Like, what did you learn from that experience, right? It's probably not your ideal job, but you have to pay bills, go for it. But still, you know, when you present that on your resume for the next interview for your dream job, just showcase that experience in a light that adds to your skill set and to your we are more flexible than ever as recruiters now because we understand what happened during the pandemic, what's happening right now. So we're not going to hold people accountable for being, you know, in a vice president role and now having to work in a, you know, manager role. No, that's not to the detriment of the candidate. We are very mindful of what's going on in the market.
What else? Who else?
Go ahead, Richelle, and then I'll go.
I was just going to go back to what Megan said earlier about red flags. I think really be mindful of what you're looking for in your role. Is it only pay? Do you need somewhat flexible because you are still caring for a family? Are you just getting back into the workplace? Are you ready to go from 0 to full time? There's a lot of factors into each individual search. And I would look at it as exactly that. You are not going to always fit in the peg for any employer. And I think, to Luz's point, employers have gotten a lot more flexible with that and really find that role. I mean, I always say it's worth it to be a little bit picky. Yes, there's always bills to pay, but if you're just getting the money and that's it, man, that's pretty miserable. And you can just get money at a lot of jobs where you have a great manager that cares about your work-life balance. You know, do you need benefits for your kids? What is it that you need? So write down that list. And I've honestly done that myself when taking promotions internally. And I've written down, here's the pros of this. Yes, I have more money. I have to go to the office every day. I can't do that right now with my life. So it's just, I think it's really an individual process. But I would say always be a little bit picky. Take care of you first, because as much as we love our employees, employers just aren't putting them first. They put the company first.
Yeah, they've got to. Is everybody okay? Does anybody have to hop off right this second for a couple more minutes? Okay. I'm sorry. I know that we're right up against our hour. Megan.
I was just going to add that I think it's more important to be picky about the company and the growth opportunities you'll get at the company than the position. I think we've all been there where we had to take a position that was maybe, as in our eyes, we were, you know, undercutting ourselves or anything like that. But if you can grow and see yourself in 1, 2, even 5 years in this incredible position, then that's where you want to be at. You want to be at a company that can see you for your full potential and help you grow.
I love that perspective and taking the long view. Even earlier in this conversation, when we were talking about the candidates that can afford to really make a lot of demands and all these other things, I was like, isn't it amazing that our women can be there in 5 years, or they can be there in 10 years, right? If they get started with these entry-level roles now where they don't have a lot of leverage, gain the great skills, become fantastic employees, find so many ways to add value, in 5 or 10 years, they're going to be the ones that can write their own check, right? They can write their own story. All right. So just for our final question here, this has been so helpful. Thank you so much, everybody. What are the most important things that our women can do who are moving into a new industry? A lot of them don't have tons of work experience. Everybody's transitioning into new areas. What can they do to set themselves apart and position themselves to be as successful as possible in this time of a really tumultuous job market? Claire, can I go ahead and start with you?
Of course. So this is kind of an interesting take. You don't want to stand out in the resume period, right? That's just my perspective. You want the AI computers to review your resume and say, yep, you fit into that candidate. I'm going to push you over to a recruiter who will look at you in a bit more things. So I wouldn't do anything fancy with your resume. I would make sure it has those, leverages your skill set, make sure it talks about anything that you've, and like your history. Review the job description and see if there's like certain skill sets you can highlight in your resume, make sure like they kind of match because that helps you get to the next level. The job of your resume is to get you to the interview. That is the only thing your resume should do. So I don't I think that other people are like, do a video resume or like do something crazy. I think that the goal is to just get to the interview stage. And if your resume isn't getting to the interview stage, that's where you need to focus it on. And that's a non-recruiter's perspective. So I would love to hear what everyone else thinks, but and then sorry, this is kind of just my takeaway from a management perspective. I think that lots of people, when they get to the interview stage, believe that managers have like poured over the resume, like they've memorized it and like taken it into their soul. And so they just are like, okay, great. Yeah, you know how great I am. You saw my resume. When I'm on an interview panel, it's like I've seen 30 seconds and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember they worked for that one company once. And it's in the interview room that you get the job. So I guess like don't rest on your resume. Make sure that you're prepared in the interview process, that you can highlight and have those great stories that are memorable. But yeah, that's my perspective. And like I said, it's a non-recruiter perspective. So I'd love for anyone to say, that's wrong, Claire. That's fine.
Oh, thank you so much, Claire. Richelle.
Please don't do a video interview. We are seeing so many resumes sometimes that a video interview is just one more thing that recruiters don't have time for. One thing I would suggest is the LinkedIn again. Find a hiring person on LinkedIn, reach out, and do not use the canned response in LinkedIn. Don't use that canned statement. I'm seeing, I don't even know how many, because it always has a 99 and a plus messages per day. And I know that the ones I respond to are those ones that were like, hey, I looked at this position. This is why I think I'm qualified. Would you mind if I use you as a referral? Because I know that when we're looking at those positions that do get 700 applicants, you know, sometimes a referral will stand out, an internal candidate will stand out, somebody that's been previously employed by us or has ties to the state sometimes when they're remote roles will even stand out a little bit more, and we'll take a second glance at those specific resumes. But to Claire's point, yes, don't worry so much about standing out on your resume, and do your research before the interview. Know the mission, vision, values of the company, know some things about the role. And when somebody does reach out to me on LinkedIn, before I'll say, yes, you can use me as a referral, I say, let's have a 15-minute conversation and find out what you're looking for, what you know about us, and what I need to know about you. So have that elevator speech ready at all times.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, Luz, what do you think? How can we stand out and position ourselves best?
Well, my experience is a little bit different than Richelle and Claire, because what we are looking for when we do, and the previous companies I work for, definitely the recruiter goes to the resume and we want to see concise. That's when we want to see the candidates, shine. Because if we see a candidate with a 5-page resume and no relevant information, lots of blah, 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 versus 1 page, regardless of your length of experience, 1-pager with the skills listed very clearly with, bullet points and percentages or things like that, that's a candidate we want to talk to. That's the first barrier, pretty much, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we just get dizzy after reading 2 pages of the resume. We're like, I don't even see how this candidate, is going to perform in here, because one of the requirements for this job is being concise and being able to deliver presentations. Does this person in the resume is showing me that they can be concise? No. So probably that's the first disqualifier, right? So be concise, to the point. We're not talking about anything fancy, colors and flowers and different, colors of ink or anything like that. No, we're talking about very concise. Grammar mistakes, please review, read your resume. I don't want to see candidates applying for manager positions when they are saying, I've been a manager instead of a manager. So, like those things that are the first impression. And make sure, and the way I see it is, your resume should not be the same for every single position that you're applying for. You have to customize your resume. And I'm not saying lying or changing the information. I'm saying customize the position, customize your resume to target what the job description is looking for. If the job description is looking for experience in product manager for small lending opportunities, and if you do have that experience, please put it on your resume. Don't just assume that because you said you have worked for Visa and you're looking for a job in MasterCard, we're going to understand that you have equivalent experience. So it's those things that they need to be made so evident that because even if we use, like search and filters, we're going to look for specific keywords. And if your resume has those keywords, then we want to talk with you and then move to the interview stage.
So we want to be as clear as we can, line it all up, and not leave anything to don't make them do any of the work. We've got to do all the work, right? Okay,
Exactly.
Megan, you got the final word for us.
I was going to say something that we all hear all the time is networking. I would be floored and very surprised if the job that each individual ends up with is not a job that they didn't network with someone, whether that's someone in your neighborhood, someone you met on LinkedIn, someone you met at a bike race, as Richelle said, but networking will get you a job.
Thank you so much. Friends, this has been such an important conversation, so valuable today. I'm so grateful to all of you. I want to just say a couple final words to sum up some of the things that we've talked about. The patience is going to be key, right? Recognizing we're not going to be able to dive right into our dream job. Maybe right now it's going to take some time, but if we're willing to do the work and fill in the steps and be maybe a little bit more creative, maybe a little bit more open-minded in the types of industries we're looking at, the types of companies and the types of roles that we're looking at, that is going to move us along our pathway in a way that maybe wasn't what we initially thought when we said we wanted to transition into tech, but something that will eventually get us into a great place where we're going to be able to take care of our families and have fulfilling work. Did I hit everything? Did I hit our most important points? I want to leave everybody with some hope. I know it can be discouraging to be on LinkedIn all day long and just look. We just saw another 100 layoffs at this company and this company and this company. So for the women out there, if you're getting a mental health challenge from looking at all those layoffs, take a little break, go do something else, and recognize that companies are still hiring, but it's going to be a different journey, but one that we're all up to the task. And I hope that all of you are willing to have our tech moms reach out to you and connect with you on LinkedIn. We've all got your names here, and we appreciate your support of our organization and your willingness to be mentors and advisors for us in this role. So thanks so much, everybody. And we will catch you next time at the next Better Way Thursday workshop.
Thank you.